Welcome to the Sleepy Science Brain. Tonight we're turning our attention to perception itself, the quiet mystery of how your brain constructs reality, and why that construction begins to fail as sleep approaches. This is the science of thinning awareness and folding dimensions, of particles that refuse to stay in one place, of invisible limits built into every moment of perception you have ever experienced. The science of perception reminds us that reality is not what it appears to be. It is filtered, constructed, and endlessly interpreted. The world you perceive carries only fragments of what actually exists. Your brain selects what is useful and discards the rest. Dimensions fold out of sight. Time becomes uncertain. Space loses its edges. Even the solid ground beneath you is not as solid as it feels. As you listen, you may find yourself questioning the nature of knowing itself, not as something to achieve, but as something to release. The brain does not need to understand everything to rest. The unknown is not dangerous. It is simply the larger space in which all experience occurs. If you enjoy these gentle journeys, I invite you to like, subscribe, or share a thought below. It helps others find their way here too, one sleepy soul at a time. But for now, all you need to do is relax. Let your body soften and allow your eyes to grow heavy. Let your mind unwind as we explore this invisible world. Let's begin. There is a moment that arrives without announcement. The room is still the same room. The sounds are still the same sounds. But something about the way they exist has changed. This moment does not feel like an event. It feels like a softening. The edges of objects seem less defined. Not blurred. Just less insistent. Thoughts that were present a moment ago are still present. But they have lost something. They have lost their urgency. This is not the same as tiredness. Tiredness is a heaviness. This is something else. This is a thinning. The mind is still active. It is still producing thought. But the thoughts do not attach to anything. They move through without leaving weight. The familiar becomes less familiar. Not strange. Just less solid. The brain is doing something during this time. It is not shutting down. It is not turning off. It is narrowing. Narrowing is not the same as closing. It is a reduction of input. A gentle reduction. The world is still being perceived, but fewer pieces of it are being processed. This happens without decision, without effort, without awareness most of the time. The things that mattered minutes ago are still there, but they have moved further away. Not in space, in importance. The structure of thought begins to loosen. Sentences that would normally complete themselves do not complete. They drift into other sentences, or into nothing. This is not confusion. It is a loss of insistence. The brain is reducing the number of things it considers relevant. It does this by lowering the threshold of what requires attention. Sounds that would normally register as something to notice become sounds that simply exist. They do not ask for response. The sense of time changes during this period. Not quickly. Gradually. Minutes feel less distinct from each other. One moment does not feel separate from the next moment. They blend without effort. This is not memory loss. It is a reduction in the marking of time. The brain marks time by creating distinctions, by noticing change. When change becomes less noticeable, time becomes less segmented. The thinning continues without acceleration. It does not build toward anything. It simply continues. Thoughts that were once structured begin to lose their structure. They do not become chaotic. They become loose. A thought about something specific becomes a thought about something adjacent. Then something unrelated. Then nothing specific at all. This is not distraction. It is dissolution. The mind is still present. It is still observing. But it is observing less. and what it observes carries less definition. The familiar sensation of being in a specific place at a specific time becomes less pronounced. The room is still the room, but the sense of being contained within it softens. This is perceptual narrowing. It is not a failure of perception. It is a change in what perception selects. The brain does not process everything it receives. It selects. And during this time, it selects less. The things that remain in awareness are not chosen consciously. They simply remain. Others fade without disappearing entirely. This is not sleep. It is the movement toward sleep. A movement that does not feel like movement. The boundary between being awake and being asleep is not a line. It is a region. A soft region where things are neither one thing nor another. During this time, the brain is still constructing experience. But it is constructing it more loosely. With fewer details. Fewer confirmations. Reality does not feel less real. It feels less solid. Solid is a quality of definition. Of edges. Of certainty about where one thing ends and another begins. As this quality reduces, the world does not become vague. It becomes softer. Less insistent about its own existence. The thinning is not something that happens to the world. It is something that happens to perception. Perception is not a window. It is a construction. The brain builds what it perceives from signals it receives. When the construction becomes less detailed, the world that is perceived becomes less detailed. But the signals have not changed. This is not a problem. It is a process. The process does not require participation. It does not require permission. It simply occurs. Thoughts continue to arrive. But they arrive without the usual sense of origin. They do not feel like they are coming from anywhere. They are simply present. Then not present. This is the moment reality begins to thin. It is not dramatic. It is not noticeable most of the time. It is simply a softening that continues. The brain is preparing for something. Not consciously. Not with intention. But with adjustment. The adjustment is small. Continuous. Steady. The world remains. Thought remains. Awareness remains. But the way they exist together has changed. The change is not complete. It does not finish. It continues without conclusion. The thinning continues. Gently. Without insistence. Without end. The brain was not designed to understand everything. It was designed to survive. To continue. To respond to what matters for survival. Understanding is not the same as surviving. Understanding is a luxury. Survival is a requirement. The brain does what it needs to do. It perceives what it needs to perceive. Nothing more. This is not a flaw. It is a feature. A necessary feature. The world contains more information than any brain could process. Far more. Infinitely more. So the brain selects. It chooses what to build into experience. It ignores the rest. What it chooses is not random. It chooses what has been useful. What has aided survival. What has allowed continuation. The rest is discarded before it becomes perception. It never reaches awareness. It was never missing because it was never present. This selection happens constantly. Without pause. Without awareness. The brain builds a version of reality. Not reality itself. A version. A useful version. Useful is not the same as true. Useful is what allows response. What allows action. What allows survival. Truth is something else. Truth is complete. Perception is not complete. Perception is functional. The world we perceive is a construction. A biological construction. Built from limited input. Organized in a limited way. 3 dimensions. And time. This is the structure of perception. 3 dimensions are enough. They allow movement. They allow interaction. They allow prediction. More dimensions would not aid survival. They would complicate action. So they are not perceived. This does not mean they do not exist. It means they are not useful to perceive. The brain constructs space in 3 dimensions because 3 dimensions are manageable, navigable, sufficient. Time is constructed as a flow, a single direction, past to present to future. This is also a convenience. Time allows sequence, allows memory, allows anticipation. These are useful for survival. Whether time actually flows this way is separate from whether it is useful to perceive it this way. The brain does not concern itself with what is actually there, only with what is useful to represent. Imagine a being that perceives only 2 dimensions. A flat being, living on a surface, perceiving only forward, backward, left, right. To this being, a sphere passing through its surface would appear as a circle that grows, then shrinks, then disappears. The being would not perceive a sphere. It would perceive a changing circle, a fragmentary experience, confusing, incomplete. But the being would not know it was incomplete. It would have no concept of depth, no way to imagine the dimension it cannot perceive. Its reality would feel complete, coherent, total. This is not different from human perception, just more obvious. Humans perceive 3 dimensions. And time. This feels complete, total, like all there is. But completeness is a feeling, not a fact. If there are more dimensions, they would not be perceived. They would pass through awareness the way a sphere passes through a flat surface. Fragmentary, confusing, incomplete, but not recognized as incomplete. The brain would construct whatever it could from the limited input. It would build a version that makes sense within its own limits. This is not speculation. This is how perception works. It builds from what it receives. It ignores what it cannot use. The limits are invisible. They do not feel like limits. They feel like the edges of reality itself. But they are not the edges of reality. They are the edges of construction. The brain cannot perceive what it was not designed to perceive. It cannot represent what it has no structure to represent. This is not a problem to solve. It is a condition to recognize. Recognition does not change the condition. It simply places it in awareness, gently, without urgency. The world that is perceived is the world the brain can build. Nothing more, nothing less. What lies beyond that is not absent. It is simply not constructed, not represented, not available to awareness. The brain continues its work, selecting, constructing, representing. It does not question its own limits. It does not perceive them as limits. It perceives them as reality. This is efficient, functional, useful for survival. But it is not complete. Completeness is not required. Only usefulness is required. The brain provides usefulness. It provides a version of the world that allows interaction, that allows response, that allows continuation. The version is stable, predictable, coherent within its own structure. But coherence within a structure is not the same as completeness beyond the structure. The limits remain invisible, unnoticed, functioning as they were designed to function. The brain continues, perceiving what it perceives, ignoring what it ignores. The world continues, existing as it exists, independent of what is perceived. The gap between them is not a gap that can be closed. It is a gap that defines perception itself. Perception is limited by design, by necessity, by the requirements of survival. The limits do not announce themselves. They simply exist. Quietly, constantly, the brain works within them, without knowing they are there. This continues, without change, without conclusion. The limits remain, invisible, functional, permanent. There is a period before sleep when things begin to behave differently. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but differently. The brain has been maintaining certain structures, certain consistencies, certain rules about how things connect to other things. As sleep approaches, these structures begin to relax. Relax is not the same as collapse. It is a softening, a loosening, a reduction in enforcement. The brain has been filtering, selecting, organizing, maintaining order in what is perceived. Now the filtering becomes less strict, less consistent, less concerned with maintaining the usual patterns. This is not a malfunction. It is a transition, a gentle transition. Time begins to feel different during this period. Not faster, not slower, just less reliable. A moment might stretch. It might feel longer than it should. Or it might pass without being noticed, without leaving any sense of duration. The flow of time requires effort to maintain. The brain constructs this flow, marks it, sequences it. When the effort reduces, the flow becomes less smooth, less predictable. Minutes do not feel like minutes. They feel like something else, something without a name. Space also changes. The room is still the room, but the sense of being in the room becomes uncertain. Uncertain is not the same as confused. It is a loss of definition, a softening of boundaries. The body is still in a location, but the location feels less fixed, less definite, less tied to anything specific. The brain constructs space by organizing sensory input, by placing things in relation to other things, by maintaining a consistent map. When this organization loosens, space becomes less coherent, not chaotic, just less held together. Logical continuity begins to dissolve during this time. Thoughts that would normally follow from each other stop following. One thought leads to another thought, but the connection between them is not logical. It is not even clear. It simply is. This does not feel wrong. It feels natural, appropriate, expected. The brain has been checking its own work, making sure thoughts connect, making sure sequences make sense. Now the checking reduces. The thoughts continue, but they are no longer required to connect. They drift. They merge. They separate. They dissolve into other thoughts that have no relation to them. This is the beginning of something that has many names. Hypnagogic, transitional, pre-sleep. The names do not matter. The experience is the same regardless of the name. Perception begins to collapse inward, not in space, in structure. The brain has been reaching outward, processing input from the environment, building a world from signals. Now it begins to turn inward, to process its own activity, to build a world from its own patterns. The external input is still present, still arriving, but it is no longer the primary material. The brain begins to construct from memory, from fragments, from its own previous constructions. Images appear without source. Sounds occur without cause. Sensations arise without connection to the body. These are not hallucinations. They are simply constructions. Constructions that are no longer bound to external input. The brain has always been constructing. It has always been building what is perceived. Now it is simply building from different material. The material is internal, stored, self-generated. The world that is perceived begins to shift. It is no longer fully the external world. It is not yet fully the internal world. It is both. Neither. Something between. This between place has no clear boundaries, no rules, no consistency. Things appear and disappear, change without transition, exist without context. This is not disturbing. It is simply what happens when perception lets go of its usual constraints. The constraints have been holding perception in a specific shape, a waking shape, a functional shape. As the constraints relax, the shape changes, becomes fluid, becomes unpredictable. The brain is still working, still constructing, still building experience. But it is building differently. It is building without the need for coherence, without the need for continuity, without the need for external validation. What is perceived does not need to match what is there. It only needs to exist. And it does exist. Fully, completely, in its own way. The letting go continues. Without acceleration, without direction, simply continues. Each moment is less connected to the previous moment, less bound by logic, less organized by time. The experience becomes softer, looser, less insistent about its own rules. This is safe. This is normal. This is the process. The brain is not failing. It is transitioning, moving from one mode to another, from waking construction to sleeping construction. The transition is not abrupt. It is gradual, gentle, almost imperceptible, but it is happening, continuously, without pause. Perception is letting go, not of everything, just of the structures that held it in a specific form. The form is changing, becoming less defined, less rigid, less bound to the external world. The internal world is becoming more present, more available, more involved in what is perceived. This is not a choice. It is not voluntary. It simply occurs. The brain continues its work, building, constructing, perceiving. But what it builds is no longer the same. What it constructs is no longer bound by the same rules. The letting go continues, softly, steadily, without conclusion. Perception moves further from its waking form, closer to something else, something without clear definition. The transition continues, without end, without arrival. The brain lets go, gently, continuously, inevitably. Reality does not behave the way it appears to behave. This is not speculation. This is observation, careful observation, repeated observation. The world feels solid, predictable, governed by clear rules. But beneath the surface, something else is occurring. Something that does not follow the rules. Something that resists clear explanation. Physics is the study of how things work, how matter moves, how forces act, how energy transfers. For a long time, physics seemed to confirm what perception suggests. That reality is solid, definite, knowable. But the deeper the observation goes, the less solid things become. At very small scales, matter does not behave like matter. It behaves like something else. Something without clear edges, without clear location. This is not a failure of measurement. It is the way things are. Particles do not have precise positions. They have regions where they might be. Clouds of possibility, not points of certainty. This uncertainty is not due to lack of information. It is fundamental, built into the structure of reality itself. Things are not in one place. They are in multiple places, all at once, until observed, until measured. Then they collapse into one place, one state, one outcome. But before that moment, They exist in a way that does not match everyday experience. They exist as potential, as fuzziness. Fuzziness is not a metaphor. It is a description, the most accurate description available. Reality at its smallest scales is not crisp, not definite, not solid in any conventional sense. It is blurred, spread out, uncertain in a way that cannot be removed. This does not feel true. It does not match what is perceived, but it is what observation reveals. The gap between what is perceived and what is measured is not small. It is fundamental. Perception shows solidity. Measurement shows something else. Gravity also behaves strangely, not in obvious ways, in subtle ways, ways that require careful observation to notice. Gravity is weak, much weaker than it should be, weaker than other forces by an enormous degree. This weakness is unexplained. There is no clear reason for it, no mechanism that accounts for the difference. One possibility is that gravity is not entirely here, that it is leaking, escaping into dimensions that are not perceived, spreading itself across more space than the 3 dimensions that are constructed by the brain. This would make it appear weak, diluted, spread thin across regions that cannot be detected. This is not proven. It is simply consistent with what is observed, a possibility among possibilities. But it suggests something. It suggests that what is perceived is not all there is, that reality extends beyond perception in ways that leave traces, small traces, subtle traces, but traces nonetheless. The structure of reality contains cracks, not visible cracks, not obvious disruptions, but inconsistencies, gaps in explanation, behaviors that do not fit neatly into expected patterns. These cracks do not threaten anything. They simply exist, quietly, persistently. They suggest that the construction of perception is missing pieces, not because perception has failed, but because perception was never designed to capture everything. Some of reality may be escaping, passing through without being noticed, without being constructed into experience, not because it is hidden, but because it is not useful to perceive, not relevant to survival, not part of the biological framework. The brain builds what it needs. Physics measures what is there. The two do not always align. This misalignment is not a problem. It is simply a fact, a quiet fact. Reality continues to behave in ways that do not match expectation, in ways that resist simple explanation. The fuzziness at small scales continues. The weakness of gravity continues. The gaps in understanding continue. These are not errors waiting to be corrected. They are features of reality itself. Features that do not fit into the structure of perception. Perception remains stable, consistent, functional. But beneath it, reality is doing something else. Something that does not translate neatly into experience. The cracks remain, not growing, not closing, simply present. They do not demand attention. They do not require resolution. They simply are. Physics continues to measure, to observe, to document the strangeness. Perception continues to construct, to build, to maintain the world as it is experienced. The two continue in parallel, not matching, not contradicting, simply existing alongside each other. The structure of reality contains more than what is perceived. This is not surprising. It is expected. Perception is limited. Reality is not. The cracks are where the limitation shows, where the edges of construction become visible, where something beyond perception leaves a trace. These traces do not explain anything. They simply suggest, gently, without insistence, They suggest that the world is larger than experience, more complex than representation, more strange than what feels normal. This strangeness is not frightening. It is simply there, woven into the fabric of things. Quiet, constant, unresolved. The brain continues its work, building perception, maintaining consistency, ignoring what it cannot use. Reality continues its work, behaving as it behaves, following rules that are not fully known, not fully knowable. The gap between them remains, not a gap that closes, not a gap that matters for daily function, just a gap, a quiet space where perception ends and something else continues. The cracks remain, the fuzziness remains, the weakness remains. All of it continues, without resolution, without conclusion, simply present, simply ongoing, simply part of what is. There may be more to space than what is perceived. Not more objects, not more matter, more directions, more ways to move, more dimensions. These dimensions would not be absent. They would be present, always present, but folded. Folded is not the same as hidden. It is a compression, a curling, a way of existing in a very small form, small enough that movement through these dimensions goes unnoticed, small enough that they do not register in perception. The three dimensions that are perceived feel open, expansive, available for movement in any direction. But dimensions do not need to be open to exist. They can be compressed, curled into themselves, existing in a space too small to detect. This compression does not remove them. It simply makes them unavailable for large-scale movement, for biological navigation, for perception. They remain part of the structure, part of the fabric, but folded out of sight. Folded dimensions would be everywhere, at every point in space, present in every location, but too small to enter, too small to notice. This is not a flaw in perception. It is a consequence of scale, of the size at which biological systems operate. The brain constructs space at the scale of survival, at the scale of movement and interaction, at the scale of useful navigation. Dimensions that are compressed below this scale would not interfere with function. They would simply not be included in the construction. They would pass through awareness without creating any experience, without leaving any trace in perception. But they would still be there, still part of the structure, still participating in the behavior of reality. Particles exist in these dimensions, not just the three that are perceived. All dimensions, including the folded ones. Particles are not solid objects. They are vibrations, waves, patterns of energy moving through space, through all of space, not just the open dimensions, the folded ones as well. These vibrations occur at scales too small to perceive, in directions that are not constructed into experience. But they are real. They are measurable. They affect how particles behave, how they interact, what properties they have. The properties of particles depend on how they vibrate, on the shape of the vibration, on which dimensions are involved. Some vibrations occur only in the open dimensions. Some occur in the folded dimensions. Some occur in both. This creates variety, different particles, different behaviors, different patterns, all from vibrations, all from movement through dimensions, some perceived, some not. The folded dimensions do not need to be understood to affect things. They simply exist, and their existence shapes what is observed. They shape it in ways that are not obvious, not direct, not visible in everyday experience, but in careful measurement, in precise observation. Their influence appears, Dreams also fold things. Not dimensions, but meaning, complexity, experience. Dreams take what is complex and compress it into symbols, into fragments, into condensed forms. A person becomes a feeling, a situation becomes an image, a conflict becomes a landscape. This compression is not random. It follows patterns. Patterns that are not logical but are consistent within themselves. The brain does this during sleep. It takes what has been experienced and folds it, compresses it, stores it in compact forms. These forms are not literal. They do not match what actually occurred, but they contain the essence, the compressed meaning. When the brain revisits these forms, it unpacks them, partially, imperfectly, in ways that feel coherent but are not accurate. This is not a failure. It is a method of managing complexity, of storing vast amounts of information in limited space. Folded dimensions may work similarly, not for storage, but for existence. They allow more structure to exist in the same space, more possibility, more variation, without requiring more room, without expanding into the open dimensions. They are always there, always participating, always part of what is, but they remain outside of perception, outside of experience, outside of what can be navigated or constructed. The brain cannot perceive them, cannot construct them into experience, cannot use them for navigation. So they are ignored, not consciously, not deliberately, simply by design. The structure of perception does not include them. The biological framework does not account for them. They exist in a region that is present but not available, real but not experienced. This is not a loss. It is simply a boundary, a limit of construction, a feature of how perception works. The dimensions remain folded. The vibrations continue. The particles behave according to patterns that include what is not perceived. All of this occurs without awareness, without representation in experience. The world that is constructed includes only what can be used, what can be navigated, what serves function. The rest remains folded, compressed, present but not included. Dreams continue to compress meaning. Dimensions continue to remain folded. Particles continue to vibrate through spaces that are not perceived. All of it ongoing, all of it constant, all of it outside of ordinary awareness. The brain builds what it builds. Reality continues as it continues. The gap between them is not empty. It is filled with what is folded, what is compressed, what is present but not constructed. This continues, without change, without resolution. The folded dimensions remain, always present, never noticed. The vibrations continue. The patterns persist. The compression holds. All of it there, all of it real, all of it beyond the edges of perception, quietly existing, quietly influencing, quietly continuing. The universe may not be what it appears to be, not in content, in structure, in the way it exists within something else. It may be a surface, a thin surface, a membrane stretched across dimensions that are not perceived. This membrane would contain everything, all matter, all energy, all space, all time, but it would not be all there is. It would be part of something larger, something that extends in directions the membrane does not. The membrane exists in higher dimensions, embedded in them, floating within them, but constrained to its own surface. Everything that is experienced occurs on this surface. Movement, interaction, perception, all confined to the membrane. The dimensions beyond the membrane are not accessible. not traversable, not part of the structure that contains matter and energy, but they are there. They surround the membrane. They provide the space in which the membrane exists. This is not metaphor. It is possibility, a framework that fits what is observed, a way of understanding structure that accommodates strangeness. The membrane is fragile, not physically, structurally. It is thin in dimensions that are not perceived. Thin means it does not extend far in those directions. It occupies a narrow region, a boundary, a surface with negligible depth. But within that narrow region, it contains everything. All galaxies, all particles, all forces, all events. The thinness does not limit what occurs on the surface. It only limits how the surface exists within the larger structure. The universe feels vast, infinite, unbounded. But this vastness is along the surface, not through it. The surface itself is thin, delicate, existing as a boundary between what is above and what is below in dimensions that have no names. There may be other surfaces, other membranes, parallel to this one, nearby in the higher dimensions but unreachable from within the surface. These other membranes would have their own matter, their own energy, their own structures, their own events. They would not be visible, not detectable, not accessible through any movement along this surface, but they would be there, separated by a small distance in a dimension that cannot be crossed, close but isolated, present but independent. This does not create loneliness. It creates structure, a nested structure, a framework in which many universes can exist without interfering with each other. Each membrane contains its own version of reality, its own physics, its own patterns, but all of them exist within the same larger space, the same higher dimensional framework. They are not alone. They are nested, part of a system, part of a larger organization. This organization does not need to be understood to provide comfort. It simply exists, and its existence means isolation is not fundamental. The surface is not the only surface. The universe is not the only universe. The structure contains more than what is experienced. This is not insignificance. It is context, a placement within something larger, a belonging. Insignificance suggests smallness without purpose, without connection, without place. But being part of a nested structure is not insignificance. It is participation. It is inclusion within a framework that extends beyond perception. The membrane continues to exist, to contain everything that is experienced, to provide the space in which matter and energy interact. It does not feel like a surface. It feels like all there is. Complete, total, unbounded. But this feeling is local. It is the feeling of existing within the surface, not the feeling of observing the surface from outside. From within, the surface appears infinite. From outside, it would appear thin, narrow, a boundary with negligible depth. Both perspectives are accurate. They simply describe different scales, different viewpoints. The membrane does not need to be infinite to contain everything. It only needs to be large along its own dimensions. And it is large. Large enough that no edge has been found. Large enough that movement in any direction continues indefinitely. But large along the surface does not mean thick through the surface. The two are independent. The universe is vast in the directions that are perceived, thin in the directions that are not. This thinness does not threaten anything. It does not reduce what exists. It simply describes how it exists. The membrane floats in higher dimensions, surrounded by space that is not part of the universe, not accessible, not traversable. This space is not empty. It may contain other membranes, other structures, other forms of organization, but it is not part of this experience. It is part of the larger framework, the container, the system. The membrane is fragile in the sense that it is thin, but it is stable. It persists. It contains what it contains without rupture, without dissolution. It exists as it was formed, as it continues to exist, as a surface within something larger. This does not require action, does not require maintenance, does not require awareness. It simply is, quietly, constantly, as part of the structure of things. The universe continues along its surface, expanding, cooling, evolving, all within the thin membrane. The higher dimensions continue to surround it, to provide the space in which it exists, to separate it from other membranes. All of this occurs without observation, without confirmation, without direct evidence. But it fits. It accommodates what is measured. It explains strangeness without adding complexity. The membrane remains thin, vast, nested within something larger. The universe remains all of experience, all of matter, all of time, contained within the surface. The structure continues. The nesting persists. The framework holds. All of it ongoing, all of it stable, all of it part of something beyond perception. The surface exists. The higher dimensions exist. The other membranes may exist. All of it there, all of it real, all of it beyond what can be directly known, quietly continuing, quietly nested, quietly part of a larger whole. There are things occurring that cannot be seen. Not because they are hidden, because they do not produce light, do not reflect light, do not interact with light in any way. But they are not silent. They produce effects, disturbances, signals that can be detected if the listening is careful enough. Gravitational waves are one such signal. Ripples in space itself, caused by events far away. Events involving massive objects, collisions, mergers, violent changes. These waves travel outward, through space, through time, crossing vast distances without diminishing entirely. When they arrive, they are faint, almost imperceptible, a tiny stretching and compressing of space, a distortion so small it barely registers. But it registers. With sensitive instruments, with careful measurement, with patient observation. The waves do not announce themselves. They do not arrive with clarity. They arrive as whispers, faint disturbances, signals buried in noise. Detecting them requires stillness, precision, the removal of all other influences, all other vibrations, all other movements. The instruments listen, not with sound, with measurement, with the careful tracking of distance, of interference, of pattern. They listen for changes that are smaller than anything in ordinary experience, changes that occur over fractions of time, over fractions of space, and occasionally they hear something, a signal, a wave, a whisper from something that occurred long ago. Far away, outside the reach of light. The signal does not explain itself. It does not carry information about what caused it, only that something occurred. Something massive, something energetic. The rest must be inferred, interpreted, reconstructed from the shape of the wave, from its frequency, from its duration. This reconstruction is indirect, uncertain, based on models, on assumptions, on what is believed to be possible. But it is the only way. The wave is the only evidence, the only signal, the only connection to events that cannot be seen. Particle collisions also produce signals. Not gravitational, not waves, but traces, brief appearances, momentary patterns. When particles collide at high energy, they break apart. They transform. They produce other particles. Particles that exist for fractions of time, then decay, then vanish. These particles cannot be observed directly. They exist too briefly. They are too small. They do not interact in ways that leave visible marks, but their presence can be inferred from the patterns they leave behind, from the particles they decay into, from the paths that are traced in detectors. The detectors do not see the particles. They see effects, disturbances, tiny deposits of energy, brief flashes, tracks that curve in magnetic fields. From these traces, the presence of something is reconstructed. Something that was there. Something that influenced what came after. Something that cannot be directly observed. This reconstruction requires patience. The collisions occur many times. Most produce nothing of interest. Nothing unexpected. Nothing new. But occasionally, something different appears. A pattern that does not fit. A trace that suggests something else. Something not seen before. This difference is subtle. It does not announce itself. It emerges from careful comparison, from the analysis of many events, from the patient accumulation of data. Detection is rare. It is not constant. It is not reliable. It occurs when conditions align, when signals are strong enough, when noise is low enough. Most of the time, there is nothing. Just background. Just ordinary events. Just the expected patterns. But the listening continues. The instruments remain active. The measurements persist. Because the signals, when they come, are the only connection to what cannot be seen. The only evidence of what exists beyond perception. The listening is not urgent. It is patient. It does not demand results. It simply continues. Day after day. Year after year. Waiting for the rare moments when something arrives. When a wave passes through. When a collision produces something unexpected. These moments do not change what is known. They add to it. Slowly. Incrementally. Without drama. Each signal is a small piece. A fragment. A single data point in a larger pattern that is still being assembled. The pattern is not complete. It may never be complete. But it grows. Piece by piece. Signal by signal. The instruments continue to listen. To measure. To record. Without expectation. Without frustration. Without urgency. They are designed for patience. For persistence. For the acceptance that most of the time, there is nothing. But the nothing is part of the process. It is the background against which signals appear. The silence that makes the whispers detectable. Without the nothing, the something would be invisible, indistinguishable, lost in constant activity. The silence is necessary. The waiting is necessary. The patience is necessary. Detection is not about forcing results. It is about allowing them. Creating conditions where signals can be noticed. Where faint disturbances can be recognized. This requires stillness. Stability. The removal of interference. The reduction of noise. And it requires time. Long periods of time. Uninterrupted observation. Continuous listening. The waves continue to pass through. Most go undetected. Too faint. Too brief. Too obscured by other influences. But some are noticed. Some leave traces. Some create the tiny distortions that instruments can measure. The collisions continue. Most produce expected results. Ordinary particles. Known patterns. Familiar outcomes. But some produce something else. Something that suggests more. Something that hints at what is not yet understood. These moments are rare. They are subtle. They require careful analysis, patient interpretation. But they are there, quietly arriving, quietly leaving traces, quietly connecting the visible to the invisible. The listening continues, without conclusion, without end. The instruments remain active. The measurements persist. The patience holds, waiting for the next whisper, the next trace, the next signal from what cannot be seen. Quietly listening, quietly waiting, quietly continuing. There is a point when questions stop arising, not because they have been answered, because they are no longer generated. The brain has been asking, constantly, quietly, asking what things are, where they are, what they mean, how they connect. This asking is automatic. It is part of waking function, part of how the brain maintains its map of reality. But as sleep deepens, the asking fades. It does not stop abruptly. It diminishes, gradually, steadily, until it is no longer present. The world is still there, still being perceived in some form, but it is no longer being questioned. Things simply exist, without labels, without categories, without the need to be understood. This is not confusion. It is a different mode. A mode where understanding is not required. The brain has been working to make sense of things, to organize them, to place them in context, to maintain coherence. This work requires effort, not conscious effort, biological effort, the ongoing activity of maintaining structure. As sleep approaches, this effort reduces. The need for coherence decreases. The drive to understand weakens. The brain begins to allow things to exist without explanation, without connection, without mapping. Mapping is what the brain does when it is awake. It maps sensory input, maps memory, maps expectation, maps possibility. These maps are what create the sense of a stable world. A world that persists. A world that makes sense. But the maps require maintenance. They require updating. They require the constant work of integration. When the work stops, the maps begin to dissolve. Not completely, not immediately, but gradually. The boundaries become less clear. The connections become less reliable. The structure becomes less rigid. And this is acceptable. This is expected. This is part of the transition. Curiosity is a function of waking. It drives exploration. It drives learning. It drives the accumulation of information. But it also requires energy. It requires attention. It requires the activation of systems that maintain alertness. As these systems deactivate, curiosity fades with them. The brain stops wondering, stops investigating, stops trying to resolve ambiguity. Ambiguity becomes normal, expected, not something that needs correction. Things can be uncertain, undefined, unresolved, and this creates no discomfort. The drive to know is a waking drive. It serves waking purposes. It supports waking function. In sleep, it is not needed. It does not serve any purpose. So it is allowed to fade. This fading is not loss. It is release. A letting go of something that was never meant to be permanent. The brain has been holding a structure in place. A structure of meaning, of connection, of understanding. Now it releases that structure, gently, without resistance, without concern. The structure was useful. It served its function, but it is no longer necessary. Sleep is a state where understanding is not required, where coherence is not maintained, where the world is allowed to exist without being organized. This is not a failure. It is a different way of being, a way that serves different purposes. The brain repairs during sleep. It consolidates. It reorganizes. But it does not map reality. Reality continues without being mapped, without being questioned, without being understood. And this is sufficient. This is appropriate. This is what sleep allows. The permission to let go is biological. It is not granted consciously. It emerges from the reduction of waking systems, from the activation of sleep systems. These systems do not require understanding. They do not benefit from curiosity. They function better without it. So the brain stops asking, stops organizing, stops maintaining the structure of waking perception. The world becomes simpler, not because it has changed, because it is no longer being actively constructed. What remains is a soft version of experience, a version without edges, without insistence, without the need to make sense. Thoughts continue, but they do not ask questions. They do not seek answers. They simply occur, then dissolve. Images appear, but they are not investigated, not examined, not analyzed. They simply exist, then fade. Sensations arise, but they are not interpreted, not connected to anything, not given meaning. They simply are. This is the state the brain moves toward. A state without questioning, without mapping, without the work of understanding. It is not emptiness. It is presence without structure, experience without organization, being without knowing. The transition is complete when the asking stops entirely, when nothing requires explanation, when everything is allowed to exist as it is. This does not feel like anything. It is simply the absence of the effort that was there before. The brain continues its other work, the work of maintenance, of repair, of consolidation. But it does not construct reality. It does not map experience. It does not ask what things are. It allows them to be, without question, without curiosity, without understanding. This allowance is rest, not just for the body, for the systems that maintain waking perception. They have been active, constantly, maintaining structure, maintaining coherence, maintaining the sense of a knowable world. Now they rest, and in their rest, the world becomes unknowable, unmapped, unquestioned. And this is safe. This is natural. This is what the brain does when it no longer needs to understand. The asking stops. The mapping stops. The organizing stops. What remains is simply being, without structure, without effort, without the need to know. The brain rests in this state, deeply, completely, without resistance. The questions do not return. They are not needed. They are not missed. There is only presence, only existence, only the gentle continuation of being, without asking, without answering, without understanding, simply continuing, simply being, simply resting. The brain stops asking, and in the stopping, there is peace, quiet peace, ongoing peace, peace without end. Understanding is not required for rest. The mind can release the need to know, the need to map, the need to resolve. Rest exists independently of understanding. It does not require clarity. It does not require answers. It simply requires allowing things to remain as they are, without investigation, without interpretation. The unknown is not a problem. It is not a threat. It is simply what has not been constructed into experience. And what has not been constructed does not need to be. It can remain unknown, unexamined, unresolved. This is safe. This has always been safe. The brain does not need to understand everything to function, to rest, to continue. Most of reality is unknown. Most of what exists is not perceived, not mapped, not included in experience. And this has never been a problem. It has never prevented rest. It has never created danger. The unknown is simply the larger context, the space in which the known exists, the background that allows the foreground to appear. It does not require attention. It does not require concern. It simply is. Rest happens inside the unknown, surrounded by it, held by it, supported by it. The unknown does not disturb rest. It enables it. It provides the space where rest can occur. Silence is part of this space, not the absence of sound, the absence of the need to interpret sound. Sounds continue, but they are no longer signals, no longer information, no longer something that requires response. They are simply vibrations, movements in air, patterns without meaning. And in this lack of meaning, there is rest. There is softness. There is the permission to stop listening for what sounds might indicate. Space is also part of this. Not physical space. The space between thoughts. The space where nothing is being constructed. This space is not empty. It is simply not filled with effort. Not filled with organization. Not filled with the work of understanding. It exists. Quietly. Continuously. Without purpose. And rest happens in this space. In the gaps. In the moments where nothing is being built. Where nothing is being maintained. Darkness is present. Not as a visual quality. As the absence of the need to see. To observe. To track what is visible. The eyes may be closed. Or open. It does not matter. The seeing has stopped either way. What is there is no longer being converted into experience. No longer being organized into meaning. It simply exists. Unobserved. Unconstructed. Allowed to be without being known. And this darkness is restful. Not because it hides things. Because it releases the effort of seeing. Of making sense of what is seen. The unknown holds all of this. The silence. The space. The darkness. The lack of effort. It is not hostile. It is not empty. It is simply not organized. Not structured. Not demanding anything. And inside it, rest is possible. Deep rest. Complete rest. Rest without condition. There is no need to arrive anywhere. No need to reach any state. No need to achieve any particular quality of rest. Rest is already present. Already available. Already occurring. It does not require preparation. It does not require effort. It simply requires the absence of resistance. And resistance fades when understanding is no longer pursued. When questions are no longer generated. When the unknown is no longer treated as something that must be resolved. The unknown remains. Vast. Unchanging. Indifferent to whether it is understood or not. And this indifference is restful. It asks nothing. It expects nothing. It simply continues. The mind can rest inside this. Can release into this. Can allow itself to exist without knowing. Without mapping. Without structure. This is not surrender to something threatening. It is surrender to what has always been there. What has always surrounded experience. What has always been safe. The unknown has never harmed rest. It has only supported it. Provided the space for it. Allowed it to deepen. And now the deepening continues. Without effort. Without direction. Without conclusion. There is no arrival. No completion. No moment where rest is finally achieved. There is only continuation. only the ongoing release, only the gentle dissolution of the need to understand. The unknown remains, the silence remains, the space remains, the darkness remains, and inside all of it, rest continues, deepening, softening, becoming more complete without becoming finished. There is no end to this, no boundary, no point where it stops and something else begins. It simply is, ongoing, continuous, infinite in its allowance. The brain rests, the body rests, the need to know rests. Everything rests inside the unknown, inside the vast space that has no edges, no limits, no requirements. Rest continues, deeper, softer, quieter, without destination, without purpose, without end, simply continuing, simply deepening, simply being. The unknown holds everything, and everything rests, quietly, completely, endlessly, resting, continuing, being, without need, without effort, without conclusion, simply resting, simply present, simply allowed. The unknown remains, rest remains, the continuation remains, all of it together, all of it ongoing, all of it without end, resting inside the unknown, continuing inside the unknown, being inside the unknown, quietly, softly, endlessly. Rest continues, the unknown continues, the allowing continues, without conclusion, without completion, without end, simply continuing, simply resting, simply being, inside the unknown, inside the silence, inside the space, resting, continuing, being, always, quietly, endlessly.